Good morning, dear friends. Thank you for coming this morning. Hello to those of you joining us on the internet today and in the future. Thank you to everyone who, of course the conditions are endless, but to everyone who participated this morning in volunteering to get the place ready to open and to set up the zafus and to videotape and to get the kitchen going. It's a lot to keep the trees. Hang on, I'm going to see if I can adjust this. There's a ring that was in it yesterday that I didn't like. It's still there. What should I do? I think if I did this, it could be less. Ding, 1, 2, yes. Wow. Imagine making an adjustment on the soundboard and having it work. Huh, interesting. Still a bit. Anyway, anybody here for the first time? 1, 2, 3, 4. You can raise your, again, I should raise your hand. We probably, I promise we won't bite. Good. Well, congratulations. You're seeking, and seeking leads to finding. So may this be a helpful step on your journey. I'd like to start in an unusual way today. And that is in honor of Ruth Denison, who would do things like this. I invite you to take your hands and look at them. And see them as hands with fingers and thumbs. And if you're wearing rings, notice those pieces of metal and think about what they mean to you. And then let the baby finger of your left hand move and watch it move. And then the index finger of your left hand, let it move a little bit. And notice what it takes to have it move. It takes an intention. It's not quite a thought, it's just a knowing that's what's going to move first. And then let the middle finger of your right hand move just a little bit. And then see if you can move the fourth finger of your right hand and not have anything else move. And now see if it's possible to have the index finger of your left hand and the baby finger of your right hand move. And be present, be mindful, inhabit, let awareness be here in these. And now let's let the right thumb, let's let it make a circle. And then let's have the left thumb make a square, like little straight lines. And then have it make a circle in the opposite direction. Notice if your mind wanders, and come back to this silly, really simple movement practice. And now letting your hands move in such a way that the fourth fingers will gradually move toward each other until they touch, and notice the moment of touching. Contact. And then allow your middle finger to come to join the other middle finger. Contact. And then the index fingers. Contact. And then the baby fingers. And then the thumbs. And then let your hands, it's like a spider doing a push-up on a mirror. Let it go down flat. Notice the movement. And then come up. And then once again flattening, but do it very slowly. Be present, be mindful in the hands and fingers. Take it all the way down until the hands are in the prayer position. And then letting there be another big push-up. Present in these sensations. And then let these hands open into a receptive and open-handed position, so you're looking at the palms of your hands. And please now notice how you do it, and let your eyes close such that you're just attending to the hands from the internal perspective. And let the fingers move and wiggle a little bit. Be home in them, be alive in them. And then letting your arms move, and with your eyes closed, bring your index fingers toward each other such that eventually they will meet somewhere around the level of your chin. And notice if you start feeling the presence of the other hand somehow. And then notice the first contact, how it comes out of nowhere. And notice how close or far you were from actually the point of the finger. And now adjust these fingers so they actually are touching on the end, and let them kind of circle around each other, or just circle around the tip of each other. And then let the middle fingers come together and do the same. Touching somewhere. And I imagine you can be aware of, in a certain way, how far these are from your left knee. What is the distance, the spatial distance between the left knee and this sensation? And let's let this part, and then let the baby fingers come together. And let them rub their soft, padded tips, and then more of themselves. Let them explore one another a little bit. Sensations, contact, pleasant, unpleasant, location. And now let's let them part. And then sometime in the next few seconds, with eyes closed still, let these hands clap together. Contact and then parting. Notice what it takes to suddenly move them together, and then what occurs. Doing it again. And now letting the eyes open and doing it again, this time with seeing. And now I invite you to, whatever is your dominant hand, let that one sort of rest on the other hand. And look at the back of this hand that we say, I knew it as well as I did through the back of my hand. And really attend to the back of your hand. And imagine this as the little tiny baby hand it was when you were born. And then a 10-year-old and 15-year-old. And then to whatever age you're at now. They look different over different ages. And then seeing it in your imagination as the hand of a very, very old person with parchment skin. And realizing that it is made of matter, which depends on life. Imagine this hand dissolving, blowing away as dust. This hand that we think of as mine is actually really on loan. It says a sort of a long-term lease, a medium-term lease. And then if you're sitting near somebody and want to do this, you don't have to, certainly. I invite you to reach out with one hand and touch one finger, the tip of one finger. Just reach out and notice how that is, contact. Remember the Sistine Chapel, and then let that contact break and make it again. And now let's see how it would be if you tried to clap with that hand. No, use that hand to clap somebody else's hand. And then letting your hands be out there together, maybe both with the back side up. Let yourself see them. Remarkable, one of a kind ever on the planet. Living, temporary. Okay, thank you. It's an interesting thing, applause, isn't it? That we do that. So, let's sing hymn number 1 through 10. It's really our only hymn, isn't it? Dang, we have to broaden our repertoire. So refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Refuge in that which is awake, and in reality as it is, and in the blessed fact that we have each other to practice with, community. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Once more, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Nice. That's nice, isn't it? I asked last week before I gave my talk how many people were familiar with the precepts, and it was less than a quarter of the people in the room, and I realized I forget how many of you are new. And so I wanted to ask today, how many of you could name the Four Noble Truths? How about the 8 steps of the Eightfold Path? Okay, good. That'll help.
Are you going to tell us when the quiz is?
The quiz. Every moment is the quiz. The final exam is now. Thank you. It started, right? Yeah. You all have 2. What are they? HB? No. The pencils you used to have a certain kind. Number two, right? 2 number 2 pencils, and goodness. Sure was lots of suffering around exams for me. My mother was French Canadian and born in quite severe poverty and married an Englishman and moved to Montreal, which is it's the second largest French city in the world. And we lived in an English-speaking suburb, and of course we had French in school. I flunked French endlessly because we were sort of forbidden by my dad to speak French at home. Isn't that interesting? French Canadian. She always listened to French radio, but as soon as we entered the kitchen, she'd turn it off. I got to speak French okay, finally, but I worked in French in Europe for a year, but never, not the fluency that it could have been. What a loss out of fear. And it happens all the time, of course. So, meditation. What to do? You don't have to sit cross-legged, you just sit comfortably. Comfortably with dignity. Your eyes could be open or closed. And we did that little exercise, that touching exercise. I'd been practicing for about, a decade when I met Ruth Dennison. And she totally revolutionized my understanding of meditation, because she helped me break out of the notion that it was something you do on a cushion. And I thought that's what meditation was. And what she taught, again, endlessly, was meditation is awareness of what's happening now. It doesn't matter if it's driving the car or changing a diaper or sitting at the computer. It's what's happening now. Because it's not about trying to achieve some altered state, and that's a tough one. Because we like altered states. And we like altered states because ordinary reality is quite unsatisfying. So, here we sit. Upon birth, each of us was issued a body, or more accurately, we came into being as a body, and with consciousness. And then we went through somebody training and extreme amount of intellectual education. And we really forgot how to inhabit the body, how to be with a simple touch or contact of the body with the chair. So I invite you to notice that there's a body sitting here. And it's not an image or a fantasy of a body, it's the place that aches. Place that feels warm. The tingly place. The warm or hot place, the cold place. How remarkable and what a relief it would be to simply sit here and inhabit the body. And of course we discover that the mind is a thought generator. Thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future. Pleasant thoughts, unpleasant thoughts, obsessed thoughts, wise thoughts, pretty crazy thoughts, emotions of all kinds. What if it's true that you don't have to change any of it? You don't have to get rid of anything. Doesn't mean we can't use the breath as a home base and very gently develop some concentration and ease. What if you were to stop the war of trying to get rid of something in your mind, or trying to make something different happen? What if you allowed yourself to have a profound vacation right now from achieving, from proving that you can do it? And we can use the sensations in the body of in-breathing and out-breathing as a kind of point of orientation and directionality to come home to. You can notice that each breath has a beginning. It comes really out of nowhere. It doesn't exist, and then it does. And then it doesn't. Of course, the mind will wander off. It may do more than wander. It may get quite freaked out or be obsessed by something. Or it might be quite judgmental of self or other. Might fall asleep, it might get filled with greed or disliking, aversion or restlessness. What if instead of defining these as mistakes or bad or wrong or something you shouldn't do, what if you adopted the position of a true scientist? Maybe someone who's never been in a human body-mind before. If that were the case, my guess is perhaps the most startling thing we would discover is that waking up happens by itself. The mind wanders, and then mindfulness springs into being. Knowing. So time and again we re-inhabit the body and the breathing. And again, it's not some idea or image, it's the actual sensations, mind and sensations, mind and body. You may discover awakening happening from sleepiness, sleepy dullness, colorfully called sloth and torpor. You may discover awakening happening from long discursive stories, maybe with emotions attached. If the mind wanders off for 5 minutes, or for half a second, the waking up is still the same. In fact, every time we fall into the trance of everyday life, the trance of personality, creates the very conditions for another moment of waking up. How could we ask for more? It's a perfect setup. From our somebody training, many of us have been trained to punish ourselves when we're not perfect, when we should. There's some fantasy how we should be, and therefore we lash out at ourselves. That happens a lot in meditation. What's wrong with me that I can't control my mind? If instead of calling it my mind, we called it the mind, and realized that it's like a jungle. It's life. It's not really ours to control. It is, in quotes, ours to attend to and to modulate or to decide when we want to act on its impulses. But the karmic forces that come to flower in any moment are infinitely vast. You may be able to notice that each breath, well, that there really isn't such a thing as a breath. There's the beginning, and then the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment, until there's fullness, and then there's decline. And there are the sensations of life in this nanosecond. And there are opinions about it. That's all. In a few moments, I'm going to ring the gong twice. The first is a reminder, wake up, be here. And the second then is not the end of meditation, it's actually an invitation to be awake and aware with whatever comes next. Which probably would be letting your eyes open, stretching a bit. So our procedure from here is to have some movement and then some announcements. And then I'm going to offer sharing about the Dharma. And then there's the usual delicious feast of goodies in the living room. I am today, again, poignantly aware of and grateful for the privilege that we have to have this place. We're not on one of those islands in the Mediterranean, or not in the Caribbean, or we're not fleeing from our village somewhere in the Sudan, or we have a place, we have a living teaching, no shooting nearby, enough food, optimal conditions for practicing the Dharma. When we get into survival mode, there's not much sitting around watching the breath. In fact, many of us experience our very privileged lives as survival mode, such that we think we don't have 20 minutes or half an hour a day to actually turn inward. It's a kind of interesting perception. So I'm going to, again today, invite you to stay for the whole time, participate, come and have a cup of tea, support the community financially and through your volunteer opportunities. You can't belong to PIMC officially because we don't have a membership by design, but you can really belong by participating. So I think that's what I want to say. Mr. Jim, would you care to take the helm? I'm going to try to unplug this and go play with the kids. It makes such a big popping noise. See if I can quiet it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. How do you do that? If there's a musician here, tell me how. I can go into the soundboard and turn that down, but... Oh well, Jim's over. Let's get back to... I watch them do that all the time on TV. People pull out their guitars and it doesn't make that big... Maybe someone turns down the soundboard. There's a foot pedal? Oh. It's got to be a pedal. So? You want everything? All right. A pedal. You're right. An on-off pedal.
All right, learn something new. Okay, here we stand. It's odd what happens when you spend 25 years devoted to the same teacher. You start thinking like him. sometimes thinking at the same time as him. I woke up this morning and said, I should do something different when I start the routine today. So, and he started something with totally different. So, how does this work? Anyway, we were doing, first, the thing that I came to as I woke up this morning was, I'm so grateful to be living on Turtle Island. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense to anybody? That's how the Native Americans refer to the world. It's a turtle island. Our technological age says we're just a sphere in this vast, interconnected galaxies within galaxies within galaxies. This little tiny dot. When you get the right pictures, but they feel like the whole Earth is one living, breathing organism, and they refer to it. Some tribes refer to it as Turtle Island. And so then I thought, turtle, that's right. Let's lift our shoulders and imagine ourselves as a turtle, and we're going to turn our turtle head to the left or to the right. Anyway, towards the trees. That's better. And then come back to the center and turn our turtle head towards the street. And then come back to the center, take a full breath in, and release. And again, we're a turtle, turning slowly to one side, coming back to the center, and then opening to the opposite side. Coming back to the center, breathing in. So, what just happened? With a suggestion created by a word, turtle, you knew sort of how it feels to have a shell on your back and your head just barely coming out. And but then there was this sensation. Let's do it again, but notice how you move from label to image to I am the turtle. I am moving. This body is turning its turtle head. The feeling of the body turning the head is different from the image, and it's different from the label. See if you can catch that. So, the turtle is created by lifting the shoulders, turning. Breathing in, release. Okay, now, put your hands on your hips and imagine that there's a spring, a natural spring just flowing up with water, and you're standing in this shallow pool, and you're just rising up and going back on your heels and rising up on your toes and back on your heels. So this is a Qigong routine called the bubbling spring. And the idea is that we're in touch with this turtle island, we're in touch with the earth, this living organism, and each time we rise up, it's like we're, as we breathe in and rising up, we breathe in new energy, and then on the exhale, we just return what we don't need back to the earth. We can think of it in terms of the respiratory system, breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide, but it's a physical thing. So now we have this image of a spring, a label called the bubbling spring, and then feel the toes, the heels, the breath. Put the hands behind us on the small of our back, and maybe the balance is a little more difficult, or maybe it's easier. I don't know about you. But feel the chest. Feel the shoulder blades coming closer to the spine. And then reach out like you're hugging a tree and feel the shoulder blades moving away from the spine. What are the sensations in the spine now? Okay, coming to rest. What's the impact of this routine? What are the sensations in a standing body after we've done the bubbling spring? So the mind is capable of attending to a word, spring, to a image, and it's capable of attending to sensations in the body. The mind is this amazing, amorphic, it takes any form. It takes on all forms, and on different levels, and we can notice that. Let's open the stance to wider than the hips and point the toes towards the corners, so we're kind of at a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to give you another label or a phrase, pulling the bow, and then some instructions. And you picture a bow and arrow, and you are the archer. Before we get to the specifics of that, we'll just fold our hands in the center and sink gently into your knees. And as the knees go sink, they point towards the corners just like the toes. So we're not doing anything harmful to our knees. We're balancing the tension on both sides of the kneecap, on both sides of the calf, on both sides of the thigh. So we've got this balance the hands, balance the knees and sink, and then come back up. Now we're going to turn and open towards the trees as if we're holding a bow and arrow. So we could point with one hand and kind of curl the fingers with the other hand and sink, and then come back up. So feeling the balance, turning, imagining the archer, sinking, coming back, feeling the balance. The other side, sinking, holding for a second, and then coming back up. Holding for a second, and then folding in. Stretching out to the other side, sinking, holding, flowing back into the center, hold for a second. So where's the mind attending? It can attend to words, phrases, it can attend to images, it can attend to the sensations of the body. It can actually move on beyond that to how does that make us feel? Is it a positive, a negative, or a neutral feeling? Pulling the bow, returning. Pausing. Pulling the bow and holding. Returning to the center, feeling the balance. Pulling the bow and sinking. And returning to the center and balance. Then we can open the arms and walk the toes in just little by little, opening the shoulders, breathing deeply, coming back to the bubbling spring, rocking. So we have labels, images, and sensations. What level are we on? I haven't figured out if we can do all three at once. I'm told we can only think of one thing at once. But what can the mind do? I think the mind can do all three. But it's not quite thinking because it's attending. So that's your homework. Figure out what I'm talking about. Because I can't figure it out. And then tell me. See, I didn't know how long this was going to take, so I had to artificially stop myself. All right. Sink, open the arms again. And notice the feelings. Expanding the rib cage, expanding the shoulders, sinking into the feet. The mood changes with certain kinds of sensations piled up into an image of gathering and sinking. Once more. Thank you very much. There you go, sir.
Good morning, Sangha. Beautiful day. And hello out in internet land. Hello. I have some announcements. I usually have announcements. Today is no different. So we have a number of classes and programs that are going on. This next month, we have our annual Eightfold Path class that is starting in the first week of October. That will go for, I believe it's 8 weeks. And then we have our Foundations of Mindfulness class that is also going on in October. If you are interested in these two foundational classes that are not offered all that often, please see the website and sign up. As with all of our events, our classes are donation-based. We have a requested donation, but essentially it is pay what you can because we want to get the message out so that people can get the information they need to apply the Dharma to their lives. We also have 2 retreats that are coming up that Robert is doing. He's got a retreat coming up at Hollyhock the first week of October, and then he's got one at Brighton Bush that is coming up the last week of October. So you might want to get in on one of those. We have for today Dharma consults. Do we have somebody doing Dharma consults? Today, Jim. Jim is doing Dharma consults. So we have slots for 3 starting at noon. There's a sign up back there on the table, or you can just go and see Jim. They're 20 minutes each, and they happen in this nice little room over here to the side of the podium. We have hospitality afterwards, going along with the whole idea about community. I understand that there's a number of new people here, which is wonderful. I'd like to invite you to come down to hospitality and have some tea and coffee and chat with people. And if you have any concerns at all or any discomfort about going into a social space where you don't know anybody, then come and see me and I will set you up with a Dharma buddy for the morning. Somebody who you have like a built-in connection with, who you can chat with and who you can ask questions to. Because I was rather surprised to learn over the last few months that I've been here that there are people who like never go down to hospitality because they feel too uncomfortable. And we want to do everything we can to help you deal with your discomfort and to feel comfortable here and to be good hosts for you. We also have, on Sunday evenings, we have another sit that is a bit more intimate and smaller for those of you who appreciate a more intimate sit. We also have sits on Monday nights, Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, and then Thursday night. My office is open Monday through Thursdays in the mornings. email me, phone me, come and see me and say hi. If there's anything that I can do to help you deepen your connection to this community in terms of seeking teachings or volunteering or finding out resource information, I'm happy to help with that. I'd also like to make you aware too that we have something called PIMC Connections, which is a Google group. If any of you are familiar with nextdoor.com, it's sort of like nextdoor.com. It's sort of like the PIMC neighborhood where we send messages back and forth to one another. If you have an observation about the Dharma talk that was given, or if you need a new printer, or you're looking for a used car, whatever, it is a way for community to interact and support one another, and you can sign up for that via the website. There's one other thing I'd like to do. I've been here for about 6 months, and I am really, really grateful for all the volunteers who help here. Robert talks a great deal about the value of volunteerism in community. And I know that for me, it is very easy when I come in here to just focus on my sort of standard brain of just trying to get stuff done. And what I try and do when I come here is I try and take a moment to look around the Dharma hall and appreciate it and feel it and see it. I try when I sit in my office to appreciate the surroundings that I'm in. And volunteering here is a way of doing that. It is a way of taking the lessons that we all learn on the cushion and bringing them out into the world. And we have volunteers who do that, and I am so appreciative because they keep this place going. So I would like to do something that is a little dangerous. Ew. This is a rather self-effacing group, and I would like to ask for those people who volunteer here, who have volunteered, it doesn't matter when you volunteered, if you have volunteered here even once, I would like for you to stand up and allow me to appreciate you. I know this is a dangerous thing, but really, recognition is a good thing. It really is. So if you have done any amount of volunteering here at all, I would like to say from the depth of my heart, thank you so very much for being here and being part of community and help making community happen. Have a beautiful Sunday, everyone.
Probably, wow, this is different from here, this far back, amazing. Probably most of you don't know the story of this beautiful halo. How many of you do know the story? Oh, a few. More than I would have thought. This table top was made by Ruth Dennison. And it lived in her living room in Hollywood. She and her husband, Henry was Henry Dennison of the Dennison family, the railroad family that owned half the land between Palm Springs and San Diego. So he was one of 22 grandchildren, and anyway, they married and they bought a house in Hollywood for a song, and from their back deck you could see the Hollywood sign, the Hollywood Lake and the Hollywood sign. And anyway, their home, because of Henry and Ruth, as time went on, it became a magnet for the Zen Roshis coming in from Japan and Alan Watts, and it was kind of like the spiritual intelligentsia of the United States, the Western United States in particular. Anyway, when Ruth gave me this to bring here, we had the center, and she'd been here. She said, "Darling, take this and put it behind the Buddha." She has one, had a smaller one behind her Buddha at her center. "And you should know that around this table sat Alan Watts and Allen Ginsberg, and there was a group, and they were on acid." "And I was their mama." Which she was for many of the teachers of my generation. And then I want to say, while I'm here, a little bit about this Buddha figure. This Buddha is from the village of Ubud in Bali. We had purchased the center, and I was on vacation in Bali. And part of my intention was to buy the Buddha image. And he's from a roadside stand. He was $80. He was also $600 to ship, but that was a different story. But he provides a perfect opportunity to speak about symbols and keeping, in the words of what's his name? Forgetting his name. The mythologist, Joseph Campbell. "Be sure to keep your symbols transparent to the transcendent." Meaning, when I come here and bow, or bow to the floor in front of these symbols, I'm not bowing to this. I'm not bowing to some man that died 2,500 years ago that taught the Dharma. I'm bowing to that which this represents. It's like the chant, "I take refuge in the Buddha." And what does this represent? Well, it's that whole awakeness thing. And his hands here, this is a particular image. His hand is like this. It's the first ennobling truth, the first noble truth, which I'm going to speak about a little bit. You watch, I think a pedal will appear very soon. after asking that question last week about the precepts, I reflected upon it a lot, and I think what I'm going to do is I did this a couple of years ago, to start at the beginning and to give a series of maybe 20 talks on the Eightfold Path with excursions, but to talk about those fundamental teachings which are so essential. And I'm contemplating the bold notion of, in 45 minutes, doing an overview of the Eightfold Path. Maybe. Maybe I'll start with this. Do you have a quirky personality? A personality which is a person-ality, which is sometimes hypersensitive, strongly reactive to things. Well, why don't you stop it? In fact, there's a Bob Newhart really funny thing. If you Google or you YouTube Bob Newhart, stop it. It's hilarious. Maybe I'll play it some Sunday. Well, I got a glimpse of my quirky personality this morning. I was thinking of playing a song this morning here, which I may still, but there was another song that I came across, and I'd never played it before. It was an Avett Brothers song, and I started playing it, just kind of fiddling, figuring it out, and my wife Jennifer said, "That's not even close." And I completely crumbled. And I'm really quite a new guitarist, and there's a tremendous vulnerability around that. And I had the wherewithal to say, "Ow, please be gentle. This is hard." And after I said a couple more things, she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's not what I meant at all." But by then, the personality had been gored, right? From the rational mind, so what? Somebody that I know loves me said something critical about, and her in character type, she has that aversive character that will see the flaw, and it's very useful in many circumstances. But in that instance, there's a flush of biochemistry and a sense of just crashing. And then I realized, I can't sing. I won't take my guitar this morning. And this whole sequelae, this whole thing happened. Do you recognize this? What a strange thing. Isn't it remarkable how vulnerable our self is? Now, there are other spheres where she could have said exactly the same thing, and I would have said, "What's your problem?" But that's a sphere in which there's vulnerability and just vulnerability. So thank goodness for having a Dharma perspective, because it was possible to watch the fireworks, to watch the hopelessness and the despair and the angry images, and we'll just wait till I say this about I'll wait for my opportunity. But to watch all that, and also not to actually, I don't know that there was any. I don't think there was any judgment of, that's really stupid, Robert. I mean, get over it. Because it would have been that at a certain point. But to recognize, here it is, it's blossoming, it's come into its fullness, and then I just went about getting ready, and then I was taking a shower, and I watched as it really diminished remarkably. And it was possible to observe the diminution of it and the passing away of it. Not passing away completely, but it arose. It was neither attached to too much, nor resisted too much, nor did I go into thinking about it a whole lot. It's like I saw what it was, which is part of the vulnerability of this personality in certain circumstances. You recognizing this? Quite a tangential connection, maybe not so tangential, but cautious connection. I am observing with some significant fear the escalating war of words and threats between two small boys who are regressed and acting as though they're in a gang war. And I know that when I get up in the morning, when I'm not on a news fast, I know I'm looking to see if somebody's done something bad in North Korea. If either of those little boys had the slightest capacity of self-reflection, it would be over. Right? But you hurt me, I'm going to get you back. You damaged my very vulnerable self-esteem, and so therefore the only option I have is to puff up and get tough, as opposed to, ow, that hurt. That hurt. Now, how can we, and another piece for this morning. I know this happened, the quote, criticism, experienced as criticism. And then Jen went out to the treadmill and played music, and then she came, and the whole time she was out there, I was getting my breakfast, and I was aware of this hurt. And then there was the whole debate, well, shall I say something? And there was a little bit of, this is such a little thing. Why? Could you close the window? Thanks. Let it go, Robert. But I realized I can't, right? So I took the risk, small risk, and fortunately I expressed it skillfully enough, owning it. It's not like you did something, but this is what's happening, this strong reaction. And blessedly, Jennifer was able to say, oh, I know, I'm sorry that happened. I get it. But that requires a trusting relationship and a willingness to be vulnerable on both sides. So this is not a small thing we're trying to do, or we're doing, not trying to do, but it's not a small thing we're doing in this practice, because it really means that we are coming face to face with our personality and its hurt and its vulnerability. I used to think, for a long time, I used to think that I was going to meditate enough and have some kind of a grand experience and get enough therapy that all these reactivities and vulnerabilities would go away. It's not. Now, the identification with them and the falling into despair or the going to anger, it's really, life has become most of the time much more workable. And there are particular strategies like sitting, like riding my bike. I'm riding from Beaverton several days a week. And the sanity that comes often after the first couple or 3 miles, just being in the present. Just, oh right, I was lost in a big trance again. So there is a development of sanity, a tendency to sanity that happens with the practice over time. I like that sound. Children playing. So I want to talk a bit about dukkha today. I already am, of course. Some of you, probably many of you know, some of you don't know the story of the Buddha. It's our story. He was his mother had difficulty conceiving. She went off to the mountains and performed all the proper fertility rituals, and she had a dream of a great white elephant entering her left side. And she came back down to the city, and the soothsayers were asked, so what do you make of this? And they said, well, yes, she will have a son, but there's a problem because we don't know whether this son will be spiritually inclined and become a world teacher, or whether he'll be business, politics inclined and take over the family business, because his father was sort of a head man or chief, king sort of thing. And the king, Suddhodana, really wanted an heir. It's a problem. It's something I have watched from the start. I read the books and I've watched from the start the Game of Thrones. And one of the things that I got in the middle of that was this whole thing about blood lineage. And how people really took that seriously. If you were progeny, you got the power. Which is weird, isn't it, when you think about it? But that's the way it was at his time. And so the king decided that he wanted him to become a great teacher rather than a politician or warrior. So he made an edict. Basically, and remember, we're in the realm of mythology, right? This is a story of the inner life. So he said that this boy is going to be protected from all suffering, no suffering. So there were 3 different castles for the summer, springtime, winter, and also he got the best of everything. He was the first kid to get the new Nintendo, Xbox, something or other. And he was protected from measles and skin knees. And there was, however, a problem, a sneaky problem. Not sneaky, often not so spoken of. There's a new book, apparently, by Mark Epstein, one of my psychiatrist friends read it, Dharma friend, where he points out the central wound, which was that his mother died in childbirth. He experienced a profound loss. He was raised by his aunt, but his stepmother, but he lost his mom. And you can make a pretty good case for the fact that's why he went so ascetic. That may be why he went off on his quest. That everyone in this room, I would say, you're on a quest. And you're on a quest because the usual, what do they call them? The condolence prizes, the consolation prizes are not quite working, or maybe they're really not working. Right? You've had a big loss, or 2 or 10, or there's sickness, or there's some way that it's clear to you that another TV set, or another vacation, or another relationship, or another child, or a child finally getting off to college, or that there's this dukkha, there's this nagging burr under the saddle. So anyway, that's a very useful, interesting, I think, hypothesis that the loss of his mother undermined the king's whole plan, because the king's plan was no suffering. And of course, this is mythology. But it is the MO that we try to follow, isn't it? I don't want to suffer. Whenever I speak of this, I think of the analgesic and cold section at Fred Meyer. You know, every foot, especially in that area, every foot of those shelves is thousands of dollars a year. I mean, those are super expensive shelves. And why? Well, they sell product like crazy. And they sell products to diminish symptoms, to diminish suffering. And the common cold is really painful, isn't it? It's much more painful than we usually let on. Which is why we want to get rid of it. So, Siddhartha, raised in the lap of luxury. Siddhartha means one destined for greatness. At a certain point in his life, he's been spared all suffering. Of course, this is mythology, right? But many of us have been spared big suffering. So lots of us haven't. Oh, let's do a check. How many of you have both parents alive? One parent alive. No parents alive. How many of you have lost a best friend to death? How about a pet? How about a dozen pets? Death of a child? Or an abortion? A big disappointment in love, maybe a divorce. How about serious injury or sickness? Or it's really all around us, isn't it? Or a child who hasn't done so well. Or addiction, or or an anxiety disorder, or depression, or it's all around us, isn't it? It's in us. So the story goes that Siddhartha was progressing well in martial arts and training to become a leader, political leader. And he went out one day in his chariot with his charioteer Chana. And this is a nice mythological piece here. The Hindu gods, the Brahman and his pals, were looking down, and they said, "We're waiting for these teachings. This guy has to run into some problems." And so they sent heavenly messengers, 3 of them. The first one, sickness. So he's never seen sickness, and he's riding along, and suddenly he sees a sick person beside the road, and he says to Chana, "Whoa, stop. Chana says, "No, we can't. I have my orders." He says, "No, stop." He gets down off the chariot, looks at this sick person, says, "What is this? Why, this is a sick person. Sick. And maybe it's a really sick person. Maybe it's like someone in a hospital in the ICU, or maybe it's like ourselves if we get really sick sometime." And he asks some questions, like, "Chana, could this happen to you? Could it happen to me? Could it happen to my wife?" And he had a child by this point. "Could it happen to my beautiful little baby? Why, yes. I remember when my son, who's now 36, when he got his first cold at age about 5 months, I was stunned. I'd not been around babies much. I was very involved with him. But he had this I feel a little teary as I think of it, this weepy eyes, and he was clearly hurting. And it was the first time in my life when I realized if I could take these symptoms on, I would do it. It was if I could spare him right now, it feels, if I could spare him this. Of course I couldn't, because he was in his body and I was in mine. So this kind of shocked him, Siddhartha. But it wasn't enough, and so he was out another time, and the Hindu deities sent old age, a very decrepit old person. I had the direct experience of old age and old age with my parents. Particularly, my dad died. My dad was about 2 years older than me when he died. But very, very, he never stopped drinking. And he had really descended into a lot of darkness. He was bone, his arms were bones, the distended tummy of late alcoholism, and he was pretty gone, pretty awful. But my mother survived him by about 8 years or so. And she had a terrible stroke, paralyzed on the left side. She could speak, but there were difficulties. She would break into sobbing and say, "Tell me to stop, tell me to stop." And if you said stop, she could stop. It's a recognizable thing. Anyway, she wasted away. She was 6.5 years in a nursing home. And I would go to visit in Canada. I would go to visit her. And so I would spend 2 days with her in the nursing home around her cohort. And whenever I speak of this, I remember this particular moment. I stayed for lunch one time, and I was helping feed this woman who was just skin and bones, parchment. And she would, if I put food in her mouth, she would open her mouth and swallow, and that was it. And one of the nurses came and said, "Do you have any idea who you're feeding?" And I said, "How would I?" And she said the name, and I've lost it, but she was Canada's prima ballerina between the wars. She was the greatest dancer in the world. It was kind of, whoa. And I watched as my mother, through minor strokes, and my mother, through not good care in the first days after the stroke, her shoulder was dislocated. And then they couldn't get it back in. So she had a shoulder that was dislocated and in pain with no capacity to release it, but all the nerves functional for years. So, Siddhartha, same questions. Could this happen to you, to me, to my wife, to my kid? So his denial is breaking, right? It's being challenged. And this happens to us as we age and as our friends die and as we get our own issues and as we have financial crises, and we encounter this reality too. And then the third heavenly messenger, third angel, third breaking of the denial was to be driving along, and he encountered a corpse. Let me ask you this. How many of you have been present at a human death? Wow, look at that. That's amazing. That's great. How many of you sat with a human corpse? I encourage you, avail yourself of the opportunity when it arises. Very, very potent. I had the extraordinary privilege about 6 months ago of sitting with, actually having in my arm, under my left arm, one of our long-term community members who ended her life with the Death with Dignity Act. And that was really quite remarkable. very, very bad cancer, terrible pain, gut, blocked gut, and so on. And she was quite something. So death. I was sitting with my mother when she died. She died of old person's friend, pneumonia. She got a pneumonia, and we were here in Portland. And the nurse said, I told her, Eleanor, you have pneumonia again. If you take this pill, you will probably recover. And she said, we heard her teeth snapped shut across the room. So we got in the car and zoomed up, and she had pneumonia, and she got hotter and hotter and hotter. I held her for quite some long time. She had a temperature of 107, just. And then she was unconscious, apparently unconscious, and then she opened her eyes, she gasped, and she looked over at us, first at me, and then at my sister Barbara, and then just a couple of years ago, I got to be with Ruth Dennison as she did that decline. Conscious till the end, I think, in Ruth's case. So death. It's normal, right? We all face that. Birth, sickness, old age, decay, death. And then there was a fourth heavenly messenger, which the Buddha, which Siddhartha encountered, which was a wandering mendicant, a person who had renounced the world with the intention of finding freedom from this reality. And he had a smile on his face. And he said, I think I want more of that, please. And so then he actually left. He went off on this quest. And in a certain way, the going forth they call it, in a certain way we all have to do that. Doesn't mean we have to leave our families and our homes and our careers, but we do have to recognize that the consolation prizes aren't going to give us what we really want. Right? We need to start investing in something different from trying to avoid pain and trying to have pleasure, but something that we have the blessing of the Buddha saying, there is a way to do this, and it comes through training the heart-mind. It comes through becoming more awake, more loving, more compassionate. And it comes from somehow mysteriously waking up that we're not just this. We're not just this. So it does require, there's a kind of, a kind of rude awakening which has to happen for us, in which we become somewhat disillusioned. And we avoid this disillusionment pretty darn hard. The whole realm of addiction has to do with avoiding this disillusionment. Right? I know that if I just ingest or inhale or inject or whatever this, I cannot feel this for a little while. Or if I just have the excitement of buying something or closing a big deal or having some great sex or... but at some point, and in my experience, it continues to grow over time. I keep clinging to certain things. I know this, I think this would do it, and then it doesn't. And what that results in is more turning toward practice, or more turning toward turning inward. More also the emergence of more compassion, more caring. So there's those major things, major categories, and then there's some kind of subcategories. They're not really they're big boxes or big containers. Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, arises from having experiences we don't want to have, having moods we don't want to have, having body pains we don't want to have, having experiences with our loved ones we don't want to have, not having the experiences we do want to have. Happens lots. And we can do that when we sit down in meditation. We can suffer tremendously because I'm not having the experience I want. And I don't know if you noticed, the instructions that I gave at the beginning today were the opposite of that, which is accept what's here. Accept how the mind is. Accept how the body is. This is how it is, so why not be present for it? Well, the why not is because it's unpleasant often. Right? Last time I meditated, I had this bliss state. This time it's crappy. It feels yucky. I don't want to be conscious to this. I think I just won't sit. Being with persons we don't want to be with. You going? Bye, sweetheart. Thanks for staying. Being with someone or someones we don't want to be with, and not being with the person or persons we want to be with, which is our lives, isn't it? So what I'm speaking of here is the first noble truth, the first ennobling truth. It's ennobling, Stephen Batchelor's term. It's ennobling because as we encounter this, something shifts in us. Because we start becoming compassionate. We realize this is really true for me. This really is true. My denial waxes and wanes, but it really is true. And as we encounter it in an intimate way in ourselves, we can discover gradually, sometimes by leaps, that it's true for everybody else too. Right? There's an Avett Brothers song, True Sadness. Take away a few layers, and what you'll discover is true sadness. That if we pause, it's one of the reasons people don't meditate much, is because one of the things we're going to encounter is our ungrieved grief and the fear and the loneliness, and that's not the end of the road. The road goes way beyond that to where we can feel all these unpleasant feelings, and then we also have more room for the love and the joy and the delight and so on. So, dukkha, the first noble truth. And this path, the Buddhist path, is foundationally predicated on, first off, hearing about this notion. Second, being willing to turn toward the dukkha and to bear the dukkha as a wagon bears a load, to learn to suffer consciously. Sounds really masochistic, doesn't it? And if the teaching stopped here, it really would be. On my way to my second meditation retreat way back in 1973, I hitchhiked down the West Coast, and I was with the Hare Krishnas in San Francisco, in the park, Golden Gate Park, and having some lunch and dancing. And I said I was going to a Buddhist retreat, and they said, "Oh man, that's such a downer. All they do is talk about death. Stay with us, chant Hare Krishna." So there is dukkha, an intellectual understanding. There begins to be dukkha, and we realize, wow, it's really true. And then we begin to have some facility with pausing and being with it. We learn how to turn our attention toward it and to actually be with it, which is what I was doing this morning with that yucky feeling, that place where the floor falls out of my personality into despair. I mean, a significant, maybe decades ago, that would have led to drinking, probably would have led to maybe weeks, maybe provoked me right back into deep depression. Because I couldn't bear that, I couldn't stay conscious with those feelings and realize, oh, they're just feelings, they're just thoughts and feelings. And so, that's the first noble truth, dukkha. Sound familiar? It's something that we experience every day, lots, repeatedly. Now, it would really suck if we stopped there. But Siddhartha didn't. The Buddha didn't, because he was really curious, and he developed a mind which could observe this dukkha really clearly, and then also observe its cause, which is this self that wants things to be different. I won't accept this. Or if it's pleasure, I'm going to wrap myself in it. If it's unpleasant, I'm going to push away from it. And mostly I'm just going to be out to lunch and not pay attention. But it's true, it's a fact, that it's possible to develop a mind which can observe this tanha, or thirst or craving. It's possible to develop a mind that can observe that and realize, oh, that's just habit. And what am I? I'm this mysterious capacity of awareness in which all this stuff happens, and I don't have to identify with it. And this is remarkably trainable. Trainable. And then with that second realization, with that second practice, we start realizing that, the dukkha is not continuous. As soon as there's acceptance of things as they are, the dukkha is gone. And the Buddha called that nirvana. The quenching of the craving, because we're not living in dukkha all the time. As soon as there's acceptance, it's gone. And it's not like it's an event that'll happen sometime in the future. It's always the event that happens in the present moment. And then there's the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Path, which is the developing a worldview that fits the world, and developing our aspiration and intentions to what is it that we really want? Is it what our culture says? We would want to be really well entertained, to be wealthy, to have only pleasure, but however, we do have to experience enough of that to become disillusioned. One of my early teachers, a man named Munindra, first time he came to America, he came to where I was I was a student and teaching. And he said, America is the perfect place for spirituality because you have everything. You have everything, but you're still not happy. In India, they still want everything. They still want all the things that we have in America, but so then beyond there's how do we speak? Skillful speech. We can create a mess and more suffering with our speech, or we can make healing happen. And there's action. Last week I spoke about the precepts, how we cause ourselves an uproar in the mind. And a mind in uproar can't see this dukkha and its cause and relief. And then livelihood, how we make our living, makes a difference to our spiritual practice. And then the efforts we can make to the efforts to restrain things that cause suffering in the mind, and to bring into being wholesome states like mindfulness and concentration, and that's the Eightfold Path. So it's an incredibly hopeful model. I mean, it works. It works in the micro level, and it works over time. So I have time. I'm going to do this. I think. Come on. Don't get stuck. Oh, there it goes. Music. No, wrong. Wrong. Here we are. Let's see. I have to put it on scroll. So, there's a song that speaks of this. It's by Warren Zevon. Some of you may know it. He sings it like this. Oh, don't let us get sick. Don't let us get old. don't let us get stupid, all right. But make us be brave and make us play nice. And let's be together tonight. That's a song of denial, right? It's, let's deny how things are. Let's maybe smoke another weed joint. And so I reworded it a little bit. This is the more true to the point. Oh, we will get sick and we will get old. We may get demented, then die. But make us be brave and help us play nice. And let us be together tonight. It's kind of colorful, isn't it? Oh, the sky was on fire when I walked to the mill to take up the slack in the line. I thought of my friends and the troubles they've had to keep me from thinking of mine. Oh, we will get sick and we will get old. We may get demented, then die. But make us be brave and help us play nice. And let us be together tonight. Oh, the moon has a face and it smiles on the lake and it causes the ripples in time. I'm lucky to be here with people I like, who maketh my spirit to shine. Oh, we will get sick and we will get old. We may get demented, then die. But make us be brave and help us play nice. And let us be together today. So. The thing that's so beautiful about us being brave enough to face reality is that we then love ourselves. We love the freaked out little kid who's so sensitive that his wife can say one little thing, and we love the part of us that's hopeless and frightened and looking at what's happening in the world, and we get despairing, and we like the part of us that gets angry and that gets lonely, and we like the part of us that emerges that we're so much more compassionate than we ever dreamed we could be. And there's so much more mirth, and there's so much more caring, and there's so much more creativity, that when we allow ourselves to be that which we are, which is the universe manifesting as this, we then can connect with each other, because we can tolerate the fact that the other person is in pain, and we can really be close to each other because we don't have to run away. And just circling back, that's why we have this community, because you can't do this on your own. You just can't do it on your own. It's about realizing our interconnection, and to realize that we're interconnected. It's not just what happens on the cushion, though that's incredible, but to actually meet another person, to have conflict. To have conflict and work our way through it, to be there for each other when we get sick. One of the things that happens all the time I've been teaching since '79 here in Portland. And so there's been a community, and we've been here since '04. People disappear when they get sick. And only if they're pretty well woven into the fabric of the community do we even notice. And why do we disappear when we get sick? Well, we don't feel like we're worthy of asking for help. There have been notable exceptions to that, where people have asked and the community's risen to the occasion. So, that is the beginning of this series of talks on the Eightfold Path, with the foundation of dukkha, realizing the incredible hopefulness of coming into contact with reality, and realizing how hard this life is. You remember Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled? Life is difficult. And it really is. But acknowledging that then connects us with ourselves and then with each other. So thank you very much for listening. Please do join us for some schmoozing and being together, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Oh, wait. Avi, did you mention my class? I don't think so. No. Starting in a couple of weeks, I'm offering a 10-session class which goes through the end of January on Buddhist psychology. The foundations of practice in this 2,500-year-old model of human consciousness and healing. So it's not on the website yet. We'll get it on. I'll send it out again on the listserv, but we'll get it on the website. And we're going to read, as part of that, Jack Kornfield's remarkable book, The Wise Heart. So there'll be 2 or 3 chapters, a meeting, conversation, meditation, 2 more chapters. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's bring in the kids. Let's make a big circle. What a brilliant idea. Get an on-off switch.
Oh, yeah. I'll talk to you about a good place to get it.
Yeah? No. Yeah. Hi, sweetie. You are? Okay.
Me too.
Me too.
And I am too.
You 3 of you. Wanting. Is that, do you want this? Wanting. Experience wanting. Wanting. We're not, I'm going to hold it for just now, okay? In a few minutes? 2 minutes? Okay. Can you be patient? Hard. Being patient sucks. All right. Can I hold a hand? Can I hold your hand? May I hold your hand? Thank you. You want to stick a foot in my elbow? Or a hand? Here, come on over here. Here we go. Here, we can all hold hands. There we go. Take a moment, please, to look at the hands in your hand. One of a kind ever. Beautiful. Nice pink. And then let's look around the room. We see ourselves in our many forms. And to remember that everyone here is swimming in dukkha. So why not love each other? Why not think a kind thought for the person on your left and give their hand a little squeeze? I sure hope you're happy today. And to the person on your right, I sure hope you're healthy for a long time. And to all of us, may we live in peace. May all beings live in peace. And to the leaders of our countries, may they be touched by our great kindness and compassion. And wake up and be kind to each other. So, we now have the main event. Test 1, yes. So you're going to share the microphone?
May all peace be happy.
never sung better than that, obviously. So since the time of the Buddha, we have the great blowing out of the candle practice. What's your wish? Make a wish. Everybody in the room gets to make a wish. And then we all take a deep breath. Wait for the count. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes!
We did it!
It looks like we did it. Do come back, have a cup of tea. Thank you for joining us, those of you on the internet. Lovely to be with you.